how does compound growth work? Are tariffs good or bad? And how did I, Jeremy, become a millionaire? I'm going to tell you right now. Welcome back to the Personal Finance Club show. Hey, Jen.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
Great. Do you know what this is in my hand?
Is that a McDonald's coffee cup?
No.
Oh,
It's a Better Buzz coffee cup. How dare you? But it's
it's
also
yellow and black. I feel like that's McDonald's.
I don't know. But it's also the second ever coffee I've ever drank. Interestingly, up until like a week ago, one fun fact about me was I've never had a cup of coffee in my entire life. But my wife, Andrea, keeps going and getting these like really fancy sugar and milk filled drinks. And every once in a while I take a taste of them and it doesn't really even taste like coffee. And so then I ordered my first one ever like a week ago, and this is my second one. So
you're hooked.
I'm on the path to addiction. And my first one was like with her, and this one I did by myself. And so
you're drinking in secret.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
now I have
sneaking, it's sneaking them, hiding the cups later. It's getting bad already.
All right. Well, what's your
a very social.
Choice? You doing like a caramel latte or something?
Yeah. No, it's black, which is what I call a pumpkin spice latte.
I'm screaming. Can I have my black coffee?
Yeah. And then I slide her a note that says pumpkin spice latte, like I'm a bank robber.
I'm obsessed with that. Okay, well, speaking of pumpkin spice lattes, it's officially fall. And as of this episode, we're post-Halloween, so you can talk all about your Halloween costume. Finally, cat's out of the bag.
That's right. If you don't know about this, I feel like half of my internet fame has come from Halloween costumes, and the other half has come from boring personal finance advice. And maybe people are aware of the intersection, but it all started like I think 9 years ago in 2016, where I really needed a costume, and I saw a really funny picture of a costume the year before of a guy who dressed up as a CVS receipt, and it was like huge, right? And it was funny because these stupid CVS receipts are so long, and so I was like, I don't have an idea, like maybe I'll just copy his idea, and so I did. I went to work back when I had a job, and my coworkers were all egging me on. They're like, "Oh, you got to go to a CVS. Everyone would think it's so funny." And so then I was like, "No, that's dumb." But I actually did need to get Halloween candy because there's Halloween that day, and so I was like, "Well, I guess I'll stop at CVS." And then just to prove to my coworkers that I did it, I like took a video of me walking to the CVS wearing the costume. Literally, I wasn't an influencer. I was a computer programmer. This was pre-TikTok. This was pre-Reels. I took the video. I watched when I got home. I was like, that's kind of funny. Like maybe I'll upload it to YouTube and post it to Reddit and see what happens. And so I do. I posted to Reddit, and then the first 30 minutes, I got 3 or 4 upvotes. I was like, okay, that's doing all right for early Reddit feedback of the day. Go to sleep. I wake up the next morning and my phone is smoking from the notifications. All the, Mashable, BuzzFeed, all these conglomerate
sites. Oh, you
actually
went viral back when it mattered.
This was real old school viral. Good Morning America, all the local news shows,
crazy.
Everyone was offering to buy the rights, and I was like, oh my, it's literally I'm getting these cash offers to buy the rights to this video. I was like, I don't even know what is a good price. Am I supposed to sell? Am I supposed to keep it? I don't know. And so that was my first taste of going really viral. And so then I've then Personal Finance Club started. So I started making finance themed costumes. One year I made a credit card reader.
That was a good one.
I think the CVS receipt tickled people's fancies because it's this little tiny annoyance that is really relatable that we all share. Because everyone's like, yeah, why are those so long? Ha ha ha. And just funny enough that the 2 seconds you need to catch someone's attention on the internet, it worked, right?
Right.
And the credit card reader kind of was the same thing where do I tap? Do I swipe? Do I use a chip? It was in the era where it was all transitioning and not everyone had the chip or the swipe or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, I've been doing it every year. I did a working gas pump one year where I had beer in a gas pump with a reader on there.
Okay,
so
thank you for clarifying that it wasn't gasoline, because I was you said that the other week and I was like, did he have gasoline in a little pouch?
Just spraying people with gas. I hope no one's a smoker, because watch out.
Okay, it was beer. Got it.
And then, yeah, or it could be water, but when I went to the parties, it was beer. And then, what else did I do? I did a home for sale, like a modest home for sale with like a live Zillow listing on it that showed
Hmm.
like the interest rates and price. And then this year, I was looking for another really relatable kind of annoyance among people, and I went as a automatic sink that you might find in like an airport or something, where you put your hands under and it never starts, and you pull your hands
Yeah.
away. And so I literally spent like 2 full days working on the plumbing of this thing to make it actually flow. And despite having no water source and no electrical, I can walk around wearing this automatic sink. And for me, it was like one of my most impressive ones, because it's like some real actual plumbing going on to make it work. But um, it doesn't seem to be performing very well. I just posted it this morning. This is airing like a week later, and it is not going viral like some of the others.
It's not as easy to go viral 9 years later, is it?
Yeah,
You
that might
know?
be true. I'm
And
washed up.
because I was looking at your creation of all these crazy Halloween costumes, my Twitter feed is full of really ridiculous Halloween costumes. Like I can't even think of any of them now, but I think that you have like some stiff competition. Like it's
Yeah,
really
no,
hard to
we're
shock people.
brave. I know it's true. Like you'd think a sink would be shocking, but now you have to just, I don't know, go as like a gigantic skyscraper that's 30 feet tall or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Send
Well,
in your ideas for next
we'll
year.
try again next year.
I always have people guess my ideas, and I always guess is like really obvious to me ideas, like, go as a tariff. I'm like, oh, of course, like it's like finance, and everyone's talking about tariffs. Like,
Right.
but like what that's not that interesting.
They're like,
But
stay in
yeah.
your lane, Jeremy.
Exactly. I was like, what does a sink have to do with Halloween? Or what does a sink have to do with personal finance? I was like, nothing. I don't know. Live a
Mhm.
little, nerds. Um,
It was a
yeah.
nice touch that it didn't really work. It was the opposite effect,
Right.
but
That was the joke, is when you put
uh,
your hands under it, stopped.
yeah, I
All
did
controlled,
like
by the
that.
way, by a little switch in my pocket. That like,
Oh, so you, oh, did we post the video yet? I haven't watched it.
no, there's a how-to video that's coming out in 2 days, but when you listen to this, it's already been posted.
Okay.
But yeah, there's no actual sensor in there. It's just a little USB switch in my pocket, turning
Oh,
on and off the little pump that circulates the water through the
wow,
fountain, essentially.
clever.
Yeah, very clever. But
Man.
you don't get any points for cleverness, I guess. Just shock value. Next year, we'll go bigger.
Sorry to hear it. Well, happy Halloween. Hope you guys had a great. I hope that your costume got more positive feedback than Jeremy's. That being said, let's get into our segments. Explain it like I'm five.
All right, Jen. The world of finance is complicated. I think this one I can kind of explain like you're five, or at least I have a metaphor. So what's the question?
Okay, so what is compound growth? How does it work? Explain it like I'm five.
I like this question because the dumber the question, or the dumber the question sounds, I think the more people appreciate the answer, because everyone just, oh, compound growth, blah, 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 blah. But I think there's always this little uncertainty, like, oh, how does that actually work? What's really happening there? And so I'm going to explain it using a board game analogy. You know the game of Risk? It's like
Yes.
a world map, and every country is a little colored territory, and you can put little armies in each country. And like, let's just imagine you're playing Risk, and let's say you start with one country. And the way Risk works is every time you have a country, you get a bonus each turn. And so if you control one country, this isn't the exact rules, but just for the sake of this analogy, we'll say for every country you control, you get a one army bonus. So your first turn, you have one country, you get a bonus. And then maybe you need to wait until you have 3 or 4 armies in that country before you can take over a second country. And so, turn one, you have one country, turn two, you have one country, turn three, you have one country, but you're getting more armies built up on that country. And then by turn 4, you might be able to attack a neighboring country and take that one over. And so on turn 4, you have 2 countries at the end of turn 4. So then the next turn starts, but now you get 2 bonuses, right? And so you're like, okay, now I have 2 countries, I get 2 bonuses. And then things go a little faster, because now I might need only to wait 2 more turns before I can take over a third country. And now I'm getting 3 bonuses. Fast forward a few more turns, maybe you have 10 countries, and on that one turn, you get 10 armies. And then you can take over 2 entire countries just in one turn. It gets you to 12. And so while on your first, when you started the game, you need to wait 4 turns just to take over one country. Now in turn 10, because all of these countries are now producing new armies for you, you can take over 2 new countries just in one turn. Fast forward some more turns. Let's say you have 100 countries. Now you're getting 100 armies in one turn, and you can take over 20 countries in one turn. And so you went from, waiting 4 turns to get your second country, just one country, to in one turn, you're getting 20 countries in one turn. That's literally compound growth there, because the bigger the bigger it gets, the faster it goes. And the faster it goes is because each of these countries is basically army producing. And that's really how risk feels. At the beginning, it's slow. It's like a slog. You're really trying just to get through one country. But then by the end, if you're winning, you got packs of 60 armies just ravaging and running through that's the feeling of compound growth. And it's true with money too. At the beginning, if you're starting your investing journey, your first few bucks is going to be a slog. In fact, your money's not going to make much money for you. You're not going to really get much from all these countries producing armies. You're going to get much more from your job, from savings. So I'm going to run through a quick math example. This is going from explain maybe 7 to now I'm explaining you're 13 or something.
Okay.
But
buckle up.
If you save, buckle up 8-year-olds, because this is going to be over your head. You need to be able to multiply numbers. So let's say you save $500 per month. Over the course of a year, you saved $6,000. 500 times 12 is 6,000. And let's say you put that into investment, getting a 10% return. 10% of 6,000 is $600. And so in year 1, you've saved 6,000 and your investment has returned 600. Not bad, and I think a lot of people who listen to me and watch my content, they're like, $600, man, I can't even buy anything. I thought you were talking about millions. I'm like, okay, we'll get there. In year number 2, you're still saving $500 a month. So you save your $6,000, and then that $6,000 you save gives you 10% return, which is another $600. But 2 magical things happen in year number 2. First, your first year's savings, that $6,000 you saved in year number 1, because you saved $6,000 in year number 1, that pays you again, because the return, it's kind of like your second turn in risk, right? You get another army from it every single turn, even though you already control it. So that $6,000 you already saved pays you again. So it paid you $600 last year. It pays you another $600 this year. So even though you're only saving it once, it's paying you every single year, which is part of the magic. Then, so that's magical thing number 1 that happens. Magical thing number 2 that happens is the interest from the previous year. You know how you made $600 in interest the first year?
Yeah.
That now is part of your, part of your countries, part of your armies. That $600 pays you interest. So you get $600 from this year's savings, $600 from last year's savings, plus $60 from last year's growth. Meaning you get a total return of $1,260. So in year number 1, you got $600 in growth. In year number 2, you get more than double that, $1,260. And so that's the beginning of compound growth, where the growth turns into more growth, right?
Right.
Fast forward to year number 10, when you add up all those years of previous savings and add up all that math I just did, now the growth in year number 10 is $9,562. That means 10 years in, the growth of your investments is actually more than you're even saving, which is crazy, right? And 10 years, it's a long time. If I said you're going to jail for 10 years, you'd probably be very sad. But if I said, Jen, you're younger than me, but not a lot younger than me. And if I said, 10 years ago, what were you doing? How long ago? How long does that feel to you? Your age 10 years ago, what you were doing?
10 years ago, 29. Where was she? Oh my God. New York City, living on a dream and a prayer.
Does it feel like a long time ago to you?
I guess perspective is everything, but maybe not.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Like in one hand, I feel like high school was 2 minutes ago. And on the other hand, I was like, that's 6 lives ago. But for sure, 10 years can go quick. And, if you start when you're 29, when you're 39, your investments will be growing faster than you're even saving, right? So you could even stop saving altogether. And then now you're on this trajectory, right?
Right.
And that's your 10. Fast forward even further, and you're 40. Now, instead of in year one, you made $600. In year 10, you made $9,000. In year 40, you make $265,000 a year just in growth. And so that's the magic of compound growth, which is you're still just saving that $500,
Right.
but the growth gets bigger and bigger and bigger, just like your armies get bigger and bigger and goes faster and faster and faster. And it feels very slow. One of the most common pieces of feedback I hear from early stage investors is, why is this going so slow, Jeremy? I've saved $10,000 a year for the last 2 years, and I only have $25,000. And I said, whoa, that's going incredibly well. You've saved $20,000, you have $5,000 of growth. And that's the very early stage. Most of your money in the early stages comes from your savings, but it started the snowball. It's bigger and bigger and goes faster and faster. And so it feels slow at the beginning because most of your money is from the savings, that $6,000 you're saving. In our example, I just used the $12,000 you saved in the first 2 years is much more than the $1,860 in growth. But it's the beginning of the snowball that goes faster and faster. And eventually, after 40 years in this example, you've saved $240,000, which is obviously a lot of money, but your total investment is $2.9 million. So over 90% of your investment isn't what you put in, it's the growth and the growth of the growth. And so that's what compound growth is. It's just starting small, the snowball. Your money, your armies grow, the armies get more countries, the countries get more armies, get more countries. And that's almost an exact parallel to, you buy more shares of stock, the stock produces more growth and dividends. You buy more stocks and dividends, and that's, the stocks are like the countries. Yeah. Except, countries and armies kill people, and stocks, I don't know, are numbers on a website.
Yeah, I'd say the actual process, much like a lot of personal finance, of saving and taking the time and just letting your money grow is quite boring. But watching your money grow and like retiring a millionaire is very exciting. So I think that's pretty cool.
These are very hard lessons to learn because I think we think this should be exciting. I should be like, looking at charts on a screen and, doing all this fancy stuff. And really the most important part of building wealth is just the waiting. You set it up, you do it, and you wait. And it's this tough pill to swallow, but that's what's going to make you the most rich. Messing with it more is going to make you less rich.
Preach. Okay, that's compound growth. Hope you enjoyed. Let's move on to our next segment. Money. Can I ask a dumb one?
Are you asking a dumb person? Are you asking a dumb question? I don't know.
No, Tevin's not dumb. I'm going to go ahead and speak on his behalf. This question comes from Tevin. And he emailed podcast@personalfinanceclub.com, and so can you. And Tevin actually said that he used ChatGPT to make his question shorter. So shout out to you because it's very short. And I picked this question specifically because it's one that I actually kind of had for you. Like, I don't know how many people, I don't think we've actually talked about on this podcast, but I don't know how many people know your story and how you became a millionaire, why you're a millionaire, and how you've maintained that. And Tevin actually did a really great job of asking the question. So maybe you can go a little bit into your backstory and then answer Tevin's question. But he asks, I get that building wealth can sound simple. Just keep investing in index funds, right? But what are you actually doing all that time? How did you get rich spending all your time exploring and building this hobby of wealth and investment? And from what I know about you, you are very transparent about how you made your money and how you continue to make more money. So, but for people who don't know you, how did you get here? And I specifically asked last week, what were you doing before, the big, I'll let you get into it, but yeah, what were you doing beforehand?
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of transparency with money because I think there's all this like secrecy and shame around it. And people don't want to talk about how much debt they have or what their investments are or, how much money they make. And when, wealthy people, especially on social media, like, oh yeah, I, bought this private flight or I'm a millionaire, I do this. And, it just feels like there's this like, what's behind the curtain? What's really going on? And I try to constantly, in my mind, the curtain was wide open and you can come poke your head and you can look in my bank account and you can see everything. But for sure, I know that I'm much more aware of all the content I've created on all the different platforms and someone who's coming for the first time. So I'll try to lay it out here. I went to college, got a good degree from the University of Michigan in computer science. I got a job offer from Microsoft. And I turned it down. I was a computer science major. I'm a computer programmer by trade. And instead, I started a company. And even that is probably sounds very abstract to a lot of people. It did to me. I had no idea what I was doing. I Googled how to start a company. I did not, have my hands in the Silicon Valley world. In fact, that company, we never raised a single dollar of funding. I was literally just a dude with a laptop Googling how to start company and trying to get people to give me money and,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not go to jail by the IRS for breaking some sort of tax law I wasn't aware of.
Right.
That's really what it was. And over the course of the next 12 years, I was trying to grow that company. It was an internet company. We sold basically apartment advertising. So landlords would, use our website to advertise their rental properties on dozens of different websites. And throughout that time, my max take-home pay was $36,000 a year. I was the lowest paid employee at my company. We ended up growing to a team of 7, not a huge company, still a very small company, of course. But just in order to grow the company, I was paying myself as little as I could essentially live on in San Diego. That went up until 2015. So for sure, $2015 to $2025 are different, but not that different. I was living in San Diego, so maybe it's equivalent of making $40,000 or $45,000 these days in San Diego. It's it's living lean. It's not poverty, but it's living lean.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I basically just lived on less than I made. So if I was making $3,000 a month, I'd live on $2,600 a month or something. My rent was $1,000 because I had roommates. My car was like $200. I drove a used car. I just ate very inexpensively from the grocery store. I had no kids at the time. And I played beach volleyball, which is free, short of buying a couple of volleyballs each year or whatever it was. And the day before I sold my company, my net worth had grown to about $110,000, which is, not a ton of money, but living on $36,000 a year, living below your means, putting away, it's kind of almost exactly like that $500 a month example I gave in the compound growth section
Right.
3 minutes ago, where I was saving my few $100 a month. It wasn't always 500, but over the course of 10 years, like maybe it was $5,000 a year. $5,000 a year times 10 years is $50,000 I saved. Add all the compound growth in there and you double it, and that's like the $100,000, and that's where I was. And I was certainly on pace to become a millionaire by traditional retirement age. But then I sold my company for just over $5 million in cash, which was very nice. At the time, I owned 70% of the company. My mom owned 30%, and all the employees also had a stake. And so my share after taxes was about $2 million. I made all sorts of mistakes. I paid like $1 million in taxes, which I maybe wouldn't have needed to if I knew about certain tax laws when I was starting the company. But that's life, I guess. And so my net worth went from like 0.1 million, which is 100,000, to 2.1 million with literally the click of a refresh button. And there's a video of me clicking refresh on my bank account website and going from 100,000 to 2.1 million.
Oh, I want to see that.
Yeah, I posted it. It's on YouTube. It's on Instagram.
Okay.
Maybe we'll repost it. And so, like I said, it's transparency. It was just a wire. It went to my bank account. That's what happened.
That's funny.
And then, and so when people hear that, they're like, oh, you're a tall, rich white guy who sold a tech company. How inspiring, how relatable. Yeah, I certainly get that that's not just like a very repeatable thing. But I will say, before I sold my company, I was living below my means and investing. $2 million in Southern California isn't a, guaranteed lifetime of wealth and riches. If I bought a $1 million home right then, half of it's gone. Plus I picked up a $10,000 a year tax bill. You add in a fancy car, some fancy trips, like, you can burn through that $2 million in a couple of years, and I could be back to, I better get a high paying job just to afford the tax bill on this home. Right. But that's not what I did. I kept living below my means. I kept driving the 99 Ford Explorer I was driving. I did eventually buy a Mazda. I know I'm another Mazda name dropper, and I got a Mazda chasing wife now.
Mazda chaser, that's what they call them.
Yeah, exactly. Another Mazda chaser, just so obvious. But yeah, that was so, while that was my story, the lesson there is, if you can start a company and grow and sell it, do it. I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurship. But the real story is I could have gone broke at any of these stages, but before, during, and after the company acquisition, I was living below my means and investing. And now today, my net worth is north of $6 million. So that 2 million has become 6 million. And now, 6 million is a little bit more comfortable in the FIRE world, financial independence, retire early. And so, Tevin's question is like, what were you doing all that time? I was working, growing companies, working at the company that acquired my company. And eventually I quit. And after about 2017, I haven't really had a serious income. I've been primarily living off of the growth of my investments, but I'm still living frugally enough. These days, a little bit less with 2 kids and a wife, if you know what I mean. But these days, I'm living frugally enough that my wealth is continuing to grow. And, it's been a good run in the stock market and yada, yada, yada. But, it hasn't been that atypical. The market has returned about 10% a year over any, 10 or 15 year period, historically. And so that's what I'm doing. And that's what I'm going to keep doing. And just going to try to not, live on small enough amount of my growth of my investments that I'll never need to work again to, rebuild up my investments.
Nice. I love Tevin's question. It's obviously a question that I had myself. Because we know Jeremy the millionaire, but we don't necessarily know Jeremy who lived off of 40,000 or even 100,000 a year. And what I love about what you post and what you encourage in your courses is that you show people who are pretty much at any phase what they can do to improve their financial situation. You don't obviously need to be a millionaire to take this good financial advice. So I'm sure that's why Tevin loves your content and why he asked this question. So I hope that answers it. And I find you to be somebody who's very transparent. So that was great. And a little refresher for people who may not know your backstory.
Thanks. Yeah. Ask me those tough questions. I encourage you to ask me. The only thing I can't really be transparent about as much now is like things that involve my wife's finances, because she doesn't share my show your bank account to the world mentality, which is reasonable because most people don't.
Most people don't. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I really just, maybe in a future episode, let's talk about the actual selling of the company, because that's always something that's been so abstract to me, which is like, what do you mean you sold a company? And like, how did you decide on a price and who'd you sell it to and how did you negotiate all this stuff? And I'll tell the story.
Amazing. Okay, let's get into our next segment. Scroll Patrol.
Scroll Patrol.
Let's do it. Okay, this is a video that Jeremy has not seen. I have sourced it from the internet. This is a short one, and I feel like it kind of scratches the itch of a question like that is big in the personal finance world. So, Jeremy?
All right, here's my real authentic reaction. Jen has seen this. I never have. I'm opening it up.
Stop buying coffee for $5.50. You go to work, you spend $15 on a sandwich. What are you, an idiot? It costs you 99 cents to make a sandwich at home and bring it with you. You start to add that up every day, it's a ton of money. Most people, particularly working in metropolitan cities that are just starting out on their job, making their first $60,000, piss away about $15,000 a year on stupid stuff. And that's what they should stop doing.
Oh, man. Jen did not know that I was drinking my second ever coffee.
I had no idea.
when she hit me with the "don't waste $5 on your lattes" video. So yeah, that's Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank fame, the multimillionaire, maybe he's a billionaire, I don't know, telling people not to drink $5 coffee. This $5 coffee advice was very popular 10 years ago. But then this is like my opinion about the pulse of the personal finance world. Then there's this like reactionary pushback to that saying, hey, $5 coffee ain't your problem. We're in this much more difficult world with like record high home prices and inflation and stagnant wage growth and yada, yada, yada. And that's true too. And so my opinion is, everything he's saying is actually technically correct. If you're doing let's say you go to work every day and you order DoorDash for $20 and order, by the way, in Southern California, this coffee was $7 and I'm in $5. So I can, easily spend $20 on a lunch and not even really be splurging, and then $7 on a coffee. Multiply that together, that's $810 a month. If you can get your coffee and your food for $300 a month instead of $810, that's $500 a month. That's the $3 million we was talking about, the compound growth. And so mathematically, he's exactly right that if you don't have these like little leaks in your personal finances, then, and you're directing the money to investing instead, that could be $1 million decision right there. That said, I think most people's problem isn't the occasional Starbucks. You know, the example I just gave is like $20 every day, $7 every day. That's not really what most people do. It's usually more of a treat for most people. But if you do it every day, that math is very real for you. I think for most people, it's the bigger items that are the real problem. You know, when I was talking about my millionaire housing and car costs, I found in San Diego a really cheap 2-bedroom apartment I rented with a friend. It was $1,400 a month. We split it, so my San Diego rent was $700 a month.
Wow.
It would have been very, very easy to go walk into an apartment complex, sign up for a 1-bedroom apartment, and pay $1,400 for myself. Like, very easy, right? And my car was a '99 Ford Explorer that I paid $500. That I paid $3,000 in cash for. I sold it 6 years later for $1,500. Depreciation, maintenance, all the added expenses, you average it out, I was probably paying $200 a month for my car. So $700 a month for rent, $200 for car. That allowed me to live on $3,000 a month and still save money. It would have been very, very easy for me to go walk into a car dealership, show them my pay stubs, and walk out of there with a $500 car payment.
Yeah.
And so I could have had a $1,400 apartment and a $500 car payment for $1,900 a month. That would be very, very easy. It would be very normal. It'd be very regular. It's what everyone does. It's what your friends do. It's what everyone does. That's $1,900 a month. What I was actually doing was $900 a month, right? Yeah. $700 for rent, $200 for car. And like my life looked identical to the $1,900 life people. They lived in some apartment complex. I lived in a small duplex that was rented by some property management company. They drove a Toyota that was a year old. I drove a Ford that was 9 years old. Like no one gave a shit when they saw me or came over to my apartment or whatever, right? But it was $1,000 a month difference. And so while I think Kevin is right here, that little stuff can add up. I don't think that's really most people's problems. I think it's the big things. It's you bought too much house, you're renting too much apartment, you're buying too much car, these huge payments, or you're not switching jobs and you should be switching. These days, if you just switch jobs, you can get a 20% pay jump because one company is more competitive than the other company. That right there could be a multi-million-dollar decision. And so, I don't endorse everything that this guy says for sure, but I think this message is fine. But I don't think this is like the core, most correct message of building wealth. I think the core correct message is live below your means, but do the big things right first. Housing, transportation, job, those are the big things that are going to really move the needle. Don't kill yourself over buying the occasional, if you buy 2 coffees every 45 years like I've done, that's fine.
And he said all this, y'all, just because he bought a coffee and wanted to make himself feel better. So don't fall for it. No,
I know. Kidding. Now that I'm on the coffee train, all my advice has changed.
Yeah, you became a coffee addict real quick. It only took 2.
Exactly. I need to go get a second one today. I'm getting one on the way home. But anyway, I got to give it a grade. I would give this a B+. It's technically true. I think it's a little bit on like the shame side of personal finance. And I don't think it's the most impactful thing, but, I do think we should be aware of those little leaks. And it's not the best advice I've ever heard, but it's fine.
Okay. B+, not bad. Good job, Kevin.
He'll be so happy when he never hears this.
Exactly. This is going to be the post that goes viral, not your Halloween costume. All right, let's get into our last segment of the episode. Money. Jeremy had time today.
I did.
Ooh, and we're going to get spicy. I dug back just a little bit. I thought that we might wait for this topic to cool down a little bit, but apparently not. We're lots of ups and downs going on.
It keeps coming up.
It keeps coming up. So I pulled from a post from April about why tariffs suck. And so you made a beautiful emoji post, as you are wont to do, about why you don't like tariffs, so eloquently posted by you. And we had a lot of hot comments. So we had one commenter who said, People act like tariffs are always bad, but why is it fine for other countries to charge US tariffs? Yet it's a problem when we do the same. We're not sending money overseas, we're also sending jobs. Sure, prices may go up a bit in the short term, but that creates an opportunity for American companies to compete without overcharging, like Ford is doing with the US made cars.
So if you look through this tariff issue through a political lens, which we are all probably somewhat guilty of doing today, you get a litmus test to say, okay, what side of the aisle is this guy on? And if he's not on my side, then I'm going to think of every reason that he's wrong. And tariffs are a very politically charged topic right now because we have a president, Donald Trump, who is using them in kind of very erratic ways, it seems. And people who love Donald Trump think that he's a genius businessman who's using them very strategically to advance American interests. And people who don't like Donald Trump think he's a crazy person who's just frantically doing random stuff. If you look at through a political lens, none of the words that come out of my mouth are going to mean anything to you because you're going to continue to think what you think. And I'm not going to say it's fine. It's not fine. It kind of sucks. It makes me sad about the world. But it is what it is. That said, I'm going to try to break down the topic of tariffs just kind of really simply and factually and give the pros and cons. So what is a tariff? It's pretty simple. It's a tax. This is the American-centric view of the tariffs. By the way, you can translate this to your own country if you're not in the U.S. But tariff is a tax charged to Americans, either American citizens or American companies, when they import foreign stuff. So you might actually personally see this if you like buy something on eBay from another country and you have to go pick it up at the post office. You actually have to pay a tariff on that because the post office is going to say, "Oh, this is a foreign imported product based on the declared value of it and the tariff law. To pick it up, we're going to have to pay. You have to pay a cost." Most of us don't experience that because most of us aren't really directly ordering foreign imports these days. What really happens is we'll go to Walmart to buy something that was made in China, and then the U.S. company, whether it be Walmart directly or whatever the importing company is, when they get a shipment of stuff coming off of a freighter that's landing in San Diego or whenever these companies get these big imports, then they pay a tariff on it. But then in order to keep their business solvent, they have to raise the prices, right? And so that's what a tariff is. I think there's kind of been some misinformation like, oh, we're charging the tariff to China. No, like the U.S. government can't charge a tariff to China. That doesn't make sense. We would send them a bill and they'd give us the middle finger and be like, we're our own government. We're not going to pay you any money. So that's what it says. So here's some pros about tariffs. One, it incentivizes consumers to buy American. So when all these, like let's say these, Walmart's importing a bunch of T-shirts and China sells T-shirts for $10. American-made companies sell T-shirts for $20 because American-made labor and housing and everything's more expensive here. Walmart's just going to buy all their stuff from China, and then that makes more sense. And so American T-shirt companies are kind of like, oh darn, it's hard to compete with Chinese labor, which is true. But now if Donald Trump imposes 100% tariff on Chinese imports, suddenly the Chinese-made company or the Chinese-made T-shirt cost to Walmart is now $10 paid to China, $10 in a tariff paid to the U.S. government. It's now the cost becomes the same. The U.S. company T-shirt with no tariff is $20. The Chinese net cost is $20, and now the U.S. companies can actually compete. So it incentivizes consumers to buy American. It also protects new or strategic industries. So, for example, this T-shirt industry now is more protected. We can actually foster American T-shirt companies here because they can compete on more equal footing with a lower cost of labor in China. And sometimes there are very strategic things. So, for example, if we have a medical or computer chip industry in the U.S., and these things get priced out of American manufacturing because of low cost of labor in other countries, and all of our medicine and all of our computer chips are coming from overseas, and then we get into a war with that country, and then let's say we get into a war with China, and China says, hey, I have an idea. Let's stop selling them medicine and computer chips. That's going to really be good for our war interests. Then, America as the foreign adversary to China is at a disadvantage. Another benefit of tariffs. And another benefit is it provides tax revenue. And so all this money that's getting charged to these, for these imports goes to the U.S. government, and we can use that money to, do whatever the government does, pay for roads and wars and healthcare somewhat, and whatever we spend money on. So that's the pros. Here's the cons. Cons, it makes stuff more expensive for consumers. This is already a long episode, and it's about to get longer because you kind of just threw the solve tariffs for me. I'm going to do my best, Jen.
We got to talk about it. We can't just pretend it's not happening.
All right. So cons, it makes stuff more expensive for consumers. So I used to be able to buy a t-shirt from Walmart for like $12, $10 cost to China, $2 at a Walmart profit, $12. Now I'm probably paying $22, $23 for a t-shirt in the example I gave earlier. That's inflation. When stuff becomes more expensive, it's inflation. And so when we talk about housing, grocery store, everything costing more money, this is part of it. When things go up in cost, wages have to go up, housing has to go up, food has to go up. It's all kind of interlinked, and it all is resulting in this one big number that we track called inflation. And no one likes inflation. So while everything I said sounds really good, like, yeah, go American companies, when everything costs more money, that's actually bad for workers, right? And as I said in this post, it's kind of a regressive tax, because while billionaires, if they're paying, billionaires spend very little of their money. So like, Elon Musk has $500 billion. He spends 1,000% of his money in a year, if that, right? 1,000,000%, like a tiny amount, because, if he spends $100 million a year, that's 1,000% or something. And so he's not spending much of his money. So he's not taxing much of his money. Whereas if you're making $40,000 a year, you're probably spending all 40,000. And so if costs go up, that's a tax on almost your entire pay, whereas to Elon Musk, it's a tax on none of his pay, essentially, right? So it's a very regressive tax. Two, it can make U.S. companies lazy if they don't have to compete. And so the t-shirt thing, maybe the American t-shirt company had to make their t-shirts softer, better, whatever, in order to have a Walmart prefer to buy the American t-shirt. But now if China is taxed so heavily, now America doesn't have to make better t-shirts. It just has to continue to exist because it's kind of being unfairly benefited. And the the amazing part of the free market is it lets the best companies win. And so the softest t-shirt, the sweat wicking, the coolest, t-shirts may be a bad example because they're so simple. But imagine cars or microchips. Like if a foreign made car was 3 times more money, then a crappy American car would win just because it has to. And so American companies would not innovate as much. And that would be bad for American companies in the long run because they would start to fail and they couldn't compete globally. And then finally, a con is going to lead to a trade war, as we've been kind of seeing in the news over this past year, where when we put tariffs on China doesn't like that because all their companies now it's not as easy to sell to Americans. And so China in retaliation says, okay, we're not going to buy as much of your stuff. We're doing a reverse tariff. And then the costs go up for everyone. It's kind of like cutting off your nose to spite your face. Instead of free trade and both countries really benefiting, China's buying our microchips and our services and our, whatever this, like all of our iPhones, all the stuff we're exporting, and we're buying their t-shirts and their toys and all the stuff they're exporting. Now that kind of grinds to a halt, hurts both countries.
Uno reverse tariff. Got it.
Exactly. And that's the trade war. Okay, so I'm going to tell a story about how tariffs have been used very effectively. So in South Korea in the 60s, South Korea had no car companies. And there was like BMW, there's Ford, there's General Motors, and South Korea wanted to be a modern Western world with, automotives in the 60s was kind of like tech is today. It was like the big industry. And I'm from Detroit, Motor City back in the 60s was like, the whole thing. That was like a big American industry.
Right.
And South Korea wanted to compete. And so they basically said, hey, we're going to insulate our country and our South Korean companies from foreign competition for cars. And basically they made it essentially illegal or very, very difficult to import cars at all. It's like the ultimate tariff. It's like 100, or an infinite % tariff. You can't even buy a foreign car. And then therefore, South Koreans had to buy cars from their companies like Kia, Hyundai, and Daewoo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are now, maybe not Daewoo, but these are now like household names. But at the time,
companies, yeah,
they were like they were just starting, right?
Yeah.
And so then it kind of gave these car companies, these South Korean car companies, a very unfair advantage. Their own country had to buy them, and so they started selling cars. And then over the decades, they started loosening these restrictions. Okay, instead of a ban on imports, it's just a very high tariff. And then it became a low tariff. And then and it forced the South Korean companies to basically get better. They couldn't rely on just becoming complacent and say, okay, our citizens are forced to buy our cars, and so we can just keep doing the status quo. They're saying, oh, next year the tariffs are dropping. We have to make better cars in order to compete, right? It benefits the companies by getting better. And then eventually, South Korea removed the tariffs. And why did they remove the tariffs? If tariffs have all these benefits, like, it's an incentivize, it's good for the companies, it protects the industries, it protects those industries from being competed out from the foreign countries. But once the industry is kind of more mature, now you want to sell your South Korean cars to other countries, and you want to benefit your citizens by importing cheaper parts. And so this Kia car, which used to cost $40,000, maybe it can cost $30,000 now because South Korea is not that good at making catalytic converters. Thailand really is. And so we're going to buy cheap I'm making this up, by the way. I don't know anything about like which countries make which parts. But
disclaimer.
For example, Thailand makes better catalytic converters, so we can buy them cheaper. And then we can sell entirely made Kias back to Thailand, thus making our company even bigger, selling cars cheaper to South Korean citizens, and thus benefiting it even more. And so their tariffs are kind of very strategically in this one area to say, okay, we want to insulate our industry to get them started, but then once they're mature, we want to remove them to benefit from all the benefits of free trade, like lower prices, more trade, lower prices, and more ability to sell outside of the country. And that's what's done. And so, going back to my post and the guy who's like, you're not giving tariffs the benefit of the doubt, that's kind of the pros and cons of it. Then you can take what I've just explained and apply it to the current American situation. Say, okay, is that what this current administration is doing? Are they using it to strategically protect certain industries, to foster the growth, and then remove it when, free trade is the benefit? It doesn't feel like that to me a lot. It feels like someone is tweeting when someone offends him. And, there's even been accusations, I don't necessarily condone this, but accusations of trying to tank the market temporarily and then, saying he's going to have these huge tariffs and taking them back just to have this like big lever he's like pushing back and forth to like scare everyone to, get the market to do certain things. It doesn't feel like a really...
South Korean strategy requires a certain amount of time, a certain amount of bipartisanship, but also a certain amount of time where we all can agree that this is the strategy. And with the U.S. government, specifically elections, that would be so hard to do, with especially 4-year terms and like max 8-year terms, Oh,
100%. Yeah. That South Korean story I told spans the decades from the 60s to the 2000s as they were slowly letting this industry become mature.
Right.
These tariff policies seems to span sometimes days at a time, right?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't seem like it's going to have that effect of, protecting industries. Because when, tariffs are changing week by week, it's not like we can suddenly manufacture semiconductors at home. That takes decades to build manufacturing plants, not days. So is it going to be effective? Who knows?
Well, there it is. We talked about tariffs.
I think we set a record for longest episode ever. I've been very long-winded. Apologies. Unless you like it, then you're welcome.
As one person commented on Instagram recently, Jeremy had time today. The folks are listening, okay? We're getting some crossover here.
Thank you, fellow podcast listeners out there.
I think we just recently passed 10,000 downloads, I believe.
We did. Is that good? I don't know.
Hey, I never thought 10,000 people were listening to me.
We're gonna be in the millions, Jen. We just have to get much better.
I know, but you got to start somewhere. Just like with your Instagram, I watched your first Instagram post. It was bad, Jeremy. You know, so
it was terrible.
We're doing better than that.
I agree.
All right. On that note, that's all we have time for you today on the Personal Finance Club show. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you back next week.
And don't forget to follow the 2 rules of Personal Finance Club. Rule number 1, live below your means. And rule number 2, invest early and often.
The Personal Finance Club show is produced by Jeremy Schneider and Jen Mundia. Music by Esabalu and Homie. Send your questions to podcast@personalfinanceclub.com. The Personal Finance Club show is co-hosted by Jeremy Schneider, who is a co-owner of Nectarine, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The views expressed on this show are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Nectarine. Please refer to hellonectarine.com for all relevant disclosures. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as personalized investment advice or a solicitation to buy or sell any security. Listeners should consult their own financial, legal, or tax professionals for advice specific to their situation.